Hi, welcome to XReality Podcast. I'm the host, Dominique Wu. Each week, we will have conversations with industry leaders to explore the unexpected connections and opportunities between diverse sectors in the world of spatial AI and XR. Today, our guest is Wagner James Au. Wagner is the author of Making a Metaverse That Matters, a book based on his 20 years of experience in the metaverse industry, starting as the first journalist officially embedded inside a virtual world. He is currently searching for a new and exciting opportunity to apply his extensive knowledge to the next generation of metaverse. Cool. Thank you so much for
Hey, Dominique.
Wagner. Joining us today.
Good to talk with you.
Cool. So, what's your journey of being where you are today?
It was very unexpected. A freelance journalist, fresh out of college, and I was writing articles for Wired magazine and Salon and Linden Lab, the company that founded Second Life. This is very early, 2003. They invited me to demo Second Life, and I was really blown away and really inspired by Philip Rosedale's vision because he showed me the world. And while we were talking about it, it kind of came out, maybe instead of me writing about Second Life, maybe I could write for Second Life. And this is right before the war in Iraq, and there was the kind of concept of embedded journalism. And I said, well, maybe I could be the embedded journalist in Second Life. Like I could have an avatar reporter, and I could go in and start interviewing people because it was already in the closed beta at the time, but there was already a thriving community. And so, yeah, that's how I started. Immediately discovered amazing stories, just really incredible people who were there for many reasons. One of the very first people I met was Catherine Omega is her avatar name, and she built this beautiful mansion with a monorail, and she looked really cool. She was like very cyberpunk looking. While walking in Second Life, she casually mentioned she was homeless in real life. She was squatting in an abandoned apartment building in Vancouver. That literally, her neighbors were, on crack. And this Second Life home she built, that was kind of her escape from like a really horrible situation. And that's literally one of the very first people I met. So I was like, wow, this is incredible. There's amazing stories here. And I've never left because I keep coming across stories like this.
Wow. So I really appreciate that you document all the history of metaverse. Because
Hmm.
for me, I'm millennial. When I start getting involved, I've
Yeah,
already I only know Roblox, Meta, Horizon
right,
Worlds. Yeah, more like the mid part of
right.
the metaverse. But the previous part, even I
Hmm.
really enjoyed that your conversation with Niall Stephenson,
Yeah,
because without those documentation, I follow Niall Stephenson, but I didn't
right,
saw him kind of like tell us like what he really thinks about metaverse. So
right,
I think by those documentation, I think those will unveil, kind of reveal like what's the secret or why the history formed this way. And the Second
right.
Life, I heard of it.
Yeah,
And I knew it fell, but I didn't know why. So I think
yeah,
we can dive into like some interesting like metaverse. What's the concept and what's the definition
right.
and what's your vision? And also Gen Z, a lot of like a 2D platform, game
Hmm.
platform for young kids, Gen Alpha, Gen Z. They are
Right.
very highly engaged. And how can metaverse evolve through those like those platforms that at the beginning not intended to be metaverse, but right now people associate metaverse with them. So I
Right.
want to discuss those wonderful topic with
Very
you.
cool.
Yeah, cool. So what's metaverse or M as
Yeah.
capital or M
Yeah.
as like a small case? Yeah.
Yeah. So the definition of the metaverse, capital M, I take it directly from Snow Crash because it was so incredibly inspirational and influential to multiple metaverse platforms like Fortnite and Roblox, VR chat, so on. So the metaverse is a vast virtual world accessible simultaneously by millions of people through highly customizable avatars and powerful creation tools. And it's connected to the external economy and external technology. So in other words, you can make a living because you can exchange the virtual currency for real money. And it's connected to, for example, you can control a robot. One of the things I was really inspired by when I read Snow Crash first, there's a guy who he survived the Vietnam War, and he's kind of like an emergency room bed, like in a hospital, or he has all the equipment strapped in because he's horribly burned and disfigured. But in the metaverse, he has a mansion and he's very powerful and he's able to drive his car in the real world from his mansion in the virtual world. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But what's incredible is we see that there's a lot of people who are disabled for various in various ways who are in virtual worlds like Second Life and VR chat and so on. So it's actually true. And that's the other thing I would say with the definition is it's not just an arbitrary definition based on the novel. It's that definition applies to very successful platforms like Roblox and so on, and they're working. So the concept was imagined 30 years ago by Neil Stephenson, but it's actually working in real life. It's scaled to have upwards of 700 million people that are in platforms that fit that broad definition.
Oh, so you mentioned that highly customizable avatars, powerful experience creation tools, and integrated with real world economy. All those if you see all those definitions, which platform nowadays is most fit that now Stephenson's definition?
Right. I mean, like I said, Roblox and Fortnite are the largest, and they broadly fit that. I would say VR chat is the one that's showing the most innovation. For example, there's many projects to do the real world connections with the virtual world with the external world in VR chat because the development community is really powerful. So yeah, I'd say VR chat is the one that's leading. It's big. It's not huge. It's got about 10 million users. But what's interesting, like Roblox is very quickly adding a lot of those features. For example, they recently added the ability to call people with your phone, like telephony within Roblox. So they're now, it has 350 million active users, actually larger than most telephone companies. And so that's an external technology. So
Wow.
yeah, they're all evolving very quickly, and they're all very large, the leading ones.
Yeah, and I'm interested because I read your book. You mentioned that when Second Life starting building the platform, they are not putting the game inside. But if you see Roblox and Fortnite, they are more like there are some games inside.
Right.
I mean, Second Life at the beginning, there are probably some games, but how do you see more? Yeah, how do you see more like a game base versus more open sand?
Yeah, well, and I make that one of the golden rules for metaverse that scales is there does need to be some sort of game-like element that is fun and engaging and brings people back, because really the main project with launching a platform is you want to have a powerful community of people that come back over and over again, and they start knowing each other and becoming friends with each other. And to do that, you need sort of a feedback loop of where people will have achievement points or levels, or like with VR chat, they have very interesting is a karma system. In other words, the more you're in VR chat and the more you are a valuable member, you contribute things, and you don't be abusive, you go up in a level of, you start as a new user, and then you go up more levels, designations, until you're a trusted user. And so it's kind of a game, but the game is to be a good person and to prove you're a good person, which I find really fascinating. But yeah, it works, and it's both a game and it's both a game and it rewards good behavior.
Yeah, and I remember for VR chat, I remember I just joined it because I was the new user. I couldn't build a world, but I really wanna immediately build a world to do some showcase stuff. So I registered their creator subscription, and I immediately gained that level. But if I didn't gain that level, if I wanna if I wanna create the world, there will be a pop-up and tell me that, oh, enjoy some you need to it means that I have to accumulate enough hours in order for me to understand how to create a good experience so I can create. And as far as I know, I have some friend, they create kind of, I would say, a really good business on top of VR chat, because they are doing more like the performance, VR performance, live performance inside VR chat. Yeah. And then they said that VR chat has a really great creator tools. So they just focus on the concept, performance, and then all the hard hard things VR chat work for them. So they transfer their business to VR chat. So I
that's
can
really
see
cool. Yeah.
it is very interesting phenomena. And just like you said, that VR chat is probably, if you think metaverse, VR chat is something that fits more like a Niall Stephenson's thoughts. And how about
Right.
the lowercase, the small case
Yeah.
of metaverse?
Yeah. Well, I distinguish the metaverse as the concept, the mostly platonic ideal. And what we have now is I say we have metaverse platforms with a lowercase m because these are platforms including Roblox, right? Second Life, and so on. There's about 10 or 12 now, and there's about five about to launch soon. So there's, upwards of 20, and you can call them metaverse platforms. And I say we haven't reached the point where one of them is declared to be the metaverse. And that could be Roblox just because it's so huge, though they have to scale with their user base because mostly it's kids. And we want to see if they're going to keep using Roblox as they become adults. And if that happens, or, Fortnite is another good contender because it's so large, then we can start talking about whether that's the winner, so to speak, of the metaverse ideal.
Wow. So yeah,
We have a lot of platforms.
so metaverse m, small m, is more
Right.
like a small part of like a small countries, but at the end, all the small one will merge to big one. How do you think about omniverse from NVIDIA?
I haven't really looked at it much. It's more of a internal, like for
Yeah.
enterprise applications, right?
Yeah, it
For
seems like
yeah,
they wanna be the bridge between each metaverse, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah. So it's interesting for industrial use. As far as a bridge, I get into this in the book because that's sort of the interoperability question. Is we have all these disparate virtual worlds, and do we want to make them interoperable? And my argument is that's less of an important thing because these platforms are so large and they have very different use cases and demographics. So Roblox do not want to necessarily use Omniverse. In fact, most of them do not want to do that. I mean, they're mostly kids and teenagers, whereas you have, for example, Fortnite, and it's mostly older teenagers and people in college or in their early 20s. And so it's these demographics don't really fit together. And so there's a lot of conversation in the XR industry is like, well, we need this interoperable so you can take your Fortnite content into other platforms.
Yeah.
And people really miss that these are virtual worlds that are communities as well.
Yeah.
And they have strong affinity with their content that even though they changed their name to Meta, they haven't really succeeded with the metaverse platform that they have, Horizon Worlds, that I know you worked on. So they got all the pieces except the actual important one, which is a successful virtual world metaverse platform. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be the ones that win the identity game. I think it could be Discord. Discord is doing much better, linking different game worlds and virtual worlds.
Oh, yeah, I can totally cut it out. Yeah, so don't worry about it. So yeah, so you mentioned that Meta right now, it seems like because Horizon
Right.
it's not like one of the top like a multiplayer or like not enough engagement for the large crowd. So even one login it's probably it's probably not really fits the now Stephenson's definition. And I have a very interesting conversation for my book where I interview a lot of industry leaders. I asked one question: do you think that people should have one avatar or different avatars for different platforms? What's your thought?
You really want multiple avatars because people are, especially when they start out as kids and teenager, they're experimenting with identity. So that's been a really a bad myth that you need one singular identity to go across all these worlds, and it really misunderstands one of the most powerful things about a metaverse platform is people are exploring their actual real life identity and finding out what they resonate with. And I mentioned this in the book. There's a lot of people who are LGBT in metaverse platforms. I'd estimate upwards of 20%. I did a survey of people in VR chat, and it's about 20%. So there are people who are playing. They don't want an avatar that's necessarily their real life gender, and so they are experimenting with that. Sometimes they don't want to be a gender. So there's another study where a third of men don't want to, or they prefer playing a female avatar in online world. So yeah, so So yeah, it's important to allow people the the ability to have multiple types of avatars, not even human avatars. A lot of people would prefer not to be human because that brings up, and I discuss this in the book a lot, that brings up a lot of our biases, our negative biases. We bring in racism and sexism and so on with if it's only human avatars. So yeah, you want a variety across platforms.
Yeah, just echo what you said that LGBT and also one third of men loves
Hmm.
playing a female character. I
Yeah.
have a really good friend, my college classmates. He
Hmm.
said that every time when he jump into like some virtual games, some online games, he always play woman, and all his friend was laughing at him like, "Why you play a sexy woman?" And he said,
Yeah.
"Because in real life, I couldn't do that. I
Right.
desire to try a female role. I wanna kind of
Yeah.
he just like a fantasize himself as a female, but he couldn't do
Right.
it in real world. So he's like a secretly become a very sexy woman inside the game, but he's a male.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very interesting just to see like I find out for the virtual world is less about unrooted our actual life and migrate
Hmm.
to the virtual digital world. It's more like
Right.
in this avatar, because we've already have one avatar, and this avatar kind of tied to our life. I need to eat something, I need to do something, and it's all this avatar. If I don't take care of
Right.
this avatar, the virtual one is definitely on top of this one. So, for example, one time I went to Horizon World, and
Hmm.
someone invited me to a bar, and I was like, oh, there's alcohol. I grabbed
Yes.
like a virtual things, and I
Yes.
couldn't even drink it because and I saw a lot of beautiful cakes or sushis. I couldn't eat anything. And I was
Uh,
like, yeah, if I spend my time, I still need to take out the headset and eat actual stuff. And the
right.
money exchange from there, I mean, so far it's more like a marketing branding stuff, not really
Right.
actually implement monetization. So I find
Right.
out that it's probably more social, but probably one and since the headset is kind of very chunky, so
Yeah.
normally I can only use like a straight for probably 40 minutes, so probably
Right.
I just wear it 40 minutes and I take it off, and I need to do um option like it's just optional, it's not mandatory. So
Right.
that's why I
Yeah.
find out that it's more like satisfy something or extension of our real life, something we are not satisfied or something we are looking for, and we jump in.
Hmm.
It's just an app, and if we need, we go in. If we don't need it, we get out. So
Right.
it's more, and for me, it's more like that. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate that you mentioned that a lot of people trying different things, and especially teenagers want to try
Yeah.
different identities. So
Yeah.
I think that makes sense because I remember if you Google it, Mark Zuckerberg mentioned that you only can have one identity in metaverse. If you
Yeah.
are not having one identity, you are lacking of integrity. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is a little bit
Yeah.
serious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned that in the book. It's very baked into Meta's corporate identity. It's part of their even their stock filing is real life identities are very essential to what they think will create a civil internet, which is sort of ironic because it provably has not worked on Facebook. Facebook has a lot of toxic behavior and Instagram and so on, but somehow they still want to apply that to their metaverse vision, where I mentioned that in the book where Zuckerberg made an avatar that kind of looked like him, and it looked very cartoonish, and then he said, "Oh, here's a better one," and it just was a more realistic version of him, and totally missing the point that people do not generally want to be their real life identity in a virtual world.
Mhm.
That's very rare. It's actually usually only done if it's a celebrity. So he's a celebrity. So he's like, well, I want to bring my real life, you know, social credit into a virtual world. But most people are not like that. They're not like Travis Scott, who's a very famous rapper who's in Fortnite, explore their identities. So yeah, that's a very huge mistake that Meta made that's why I explained at length why it's such a mistake, because people are kind of following their model and it's not working.
Yeah, I think what you say is pretty much what same as what I interview to a lot of people. They
Hmm.
want to have multiple. For example, I interview the lead Mozilla designer in the past, senior Mozilla,
Oh, right.
yeah, Jim, and
Hmm.
he mentioned that everybody has roles. Even in real life, you have different roles. He mentioned he's a father, he's a spouse, he's a son of his mom, and
Right.
he played different roles in different organization. So those is already kind of like in real life, you are not playing like a one character. You always need to switch. And in virtual world, you have a more imaginative switching your different roles and your
Exactly. Yeah.
perspective. So I think, yeah, so that's why, I mean, every time when I jump to MetaQuest or Horizon World, it's pretty much doing research
Mhm.
or like not really playing the game, because the game maybe the interesting thing I find out, the younger generation are engaging with that digital game world versus
Right.
people like, I mean, I'm millennials. For me, if I saw like the game shooting games,
Mhm.
I've already know what's going on, and after like 5 minutes, I probably drop. But I know kids
Right.
can get addicted. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's also the reason why young kids, and especially for Roblox, during that time when Roblox was rocking, it was during COVID, and I even
Yeah.
saw a news that a lot of parents pay their kids instead of allowance, they pay Robux.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you can see like how popular it is, because during
Mhm.
COVID, there are classmates there, and
Right.
I can see kids are very, very into those. So those has
Yeah.
the potential to grow big. So
Yeah.
yeah, so let's dive into the immersion and user experience. How
Right.
important is immersion in creating a successful metaverse? And what types of elements do you think is essential for creating like the immersion experience?
Yeah. Well, immersion is essential. It's one of the key components of the platform compared to any other type of internet technology. And really, with immersion, it's well, 3D graphics is one of the things that is essential, but also audio is a thing people miss. But if you have stereophonic audio, which actually you can hear the objects and people in the real world around you, is really important. And so those are essential for creating immersion. I say a VR headset is not necessary. You can have it. You should have it as an option, but you don't want to make that the main option, because a lot of people are unable to use VR headsets. I talk about that in the book with Meta. Is they bought Oculus Rift, and they were going to scale it up into what they thought would be their metaverse strategy. And a Microsoft scientist named Dana Boyd pointed out, I did research, and there's a large percentage of women who just get nauseous. It literally makes them throw up. And I talked to many people at Meta who are executives or managers, and they've not even researched this point. And so they're kind of, wondering why their VR headset is not selling well. It's like, well, half the population gets nauseous using this, or they have a strong propensity to get nauseous. So you definitely don't want to make it the essential must have, but it's an option. But definitely with immersion, you can get that even with a phone. Even with your phone, if you are have a 3D display, even that is immersive enough.
Yeah, just echoing what you said that before, I would say Meta is kind of like a swift, like they change their direction very fast. So there was a point that they are focusing on VR build, but
Right.
if you see right now, if you go to the app, they have a mobile phone for the Horizon world, and
Yeah.
for me, yeah,
Recently.
according to the gamification types of principles, according to the research that I read for some books, they said that for boys, they like, or men, they like to do destructive stuff. And
Mhm.
women, they like to build stuff, nutrient stuff. So I'm more like a woman. So when I see like shooting or like fighting, those more like a something need to use like violent, I tend to not really doing, because I feel like, why am I doing this? And I've already know what's going on. Either you punch and there will be more and more and you get points. And for me, I just think, what's the meaning of doing that? But I know
Right.
guys are very into those. And for women, it's more like a role play or like a puzzles or building a community. I think all those
Yeah.
stuff might be really good for like a diverse types of metaverse for people. If you see Roblox, people
Yeah.
go there and they according to my understanding, they have a education plan, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, in Minecraft, just like in your book, you mentioned that a lot of kids platforms start transforming for education purpose.
Oh,
So it
exactly. Yeah.
adds up like gamification
Hmm.
versus game, because game is purely voluntarily doing a journey that is not necessarily for someone's life, right? But for
Right.
gamification is that there's a purpose helping you in your real life, and you join it and you have some fun while doing something you have to do, like education, some other
Hmm.
training. So
Yeah.
I do think those are yeah, like appreciate that you mentioned in your book. And also for the platforms and content, how have platforms like Second Life and Horizon World evolved over time, and what lessons can we understand, like what caused the metaverse fail,
Hmm.
or what caused it to be successful? What's your thought?
Yeah. Well, Horizon Worlds, like you mentioned, they added mobile
Mm,
very recently, so that's a smart move on Meta's part. It probably is because they're so closely associated with their VR headsets that it was barely reported. I noticed. I think people haven't really realized that. And with Second Life, it has evolved in terms of graphics. Like the graphics are really amazing now.
mm,
They've improved it on that level, and they just added mobile
mm.
like a week or two ago, and that should actually drive the evolution of Second Life quite a bit. It's like I talk about in the book. It hit a growth plateau about 15 years ago or so. It's not shrunk much, but it's stayed around 500,000, 600,000 users,
Wow.
and it's a very tight community. So the people there are not going away,
Mm,
but it's been hard to grow the platform for many reasons I get to in the book. But they
mm.
did add mobile, which I think is an opportunity to grow the user base. So that's one of the big evolutionary leaps, which I think will be important actually growing the user base, because that's kind of the most important thing to do in terms of
Yeah,
evolution.
it's very interesting if you see all those like the build, follow the definition, customized avatars,
Mhm.
powerful experience, creation tools integrated with real world economy, accessible by millions of users. All those
Right.
platforms you see from Second Life, Horizon Worlds, VR Chat, Roblox, and Minecraft, they all kind of trying to do that kind of goals, but
Right.
why some succeed and why like young people are prefer, like in Second Life. I mean, I read your book, I saw some
Mhm.
musicians, some creators, I
Oh yeah.
saw it's more tend to be more older generation, and for
Yeah.
Roblox it's pretty much target are very young. What's
Yeah.
the difference between why some platform will attract some certain either age group or some people who has similar, like how
Yeah.
platform kind of being defined by the user, and why user prefer some platforms? Do you have any, for example, Gen Z prefers some platforms that has
Yeah.
something? Yeah.
Part of it is just the year in which it launches. So Second Life launched in 2003. And so the main people who could access it had a desktop computer with broadband, like a direct cable to broadband. And so it was primarily Generation X, some boomers even, and people who were already familiar with MMOs like World of Warcraft and EverQuest, that were able to access it, or other virtual worlds. Like there was one there that launched failed, and one called Active Worlds, and so people came in from other disparate virtual worlds looking for a new virtual world, and so it's going to reflect a lot of that generation. Whereas Roblox, actually, the Roblox launched in 2006, so it's almost old as Second Life, but it really didn't start getting really large traction until about say 7 to 10 years ago. So it's sort of still associated with Generation Z, and
Hmm.
and so it's a generational thing, and also a device thing, because Roblox has been available for a long time on mobile, and so basically it grew with the smartphone, and so Generation X was less accustomed to that versus say Gen Z, who are a mobile facing generation. So that's what they grew up with is a mobile apps, and so Roblox to them was a mobile experience, and so they were very quickly able to gravitate to it and use it, and it was immediately fun. So that's why it's one of the reasons why it's similar to Fortnite. It's most people on Fortnite, you play it on their mobile phone,
Mm.
but it's immediately fun and accessible. But yeah, that's important to know. And I talk about that. I call it the metaverse age cliff. Is these platforms are really popular, but if you look at the demographics, they start dropping off very soon after people reach their 20s,
Mm.
and it's just probably because people start going to college, they start going on dates, they go to parties, they go to concerts in the real world, so they have less time for metaverse platforms. So it's very crucial that metaverse startups, companies think about that. Like, you might be successful for the first few years, but what happens when the established user base starts losing interest, or they not even lose interest, but they just become interested in doing other things in the real world? And so you have to plan around that and plan for people to keep them connected in a way that they still enjoy talking with their friends and so on, but less like they might do it a lot less. They'll go in for an hour a week versus many hours a week.
Yeah, just like echoing what you said that for a lot of social platforms, social media platforms, Facebook probably survive the longest. And
Yeah.
then if you see Snapchat, if you see TikTok, if you see like LinkedIn, I find out all those like a social platform attract certain different types of purpose and
Yeah.
attract certain types of group. And people usually mention that Facebook is for boomer, and and what else?
Very similar.
Instagram is for
Yeah.
LinkedIn is for Gen X.
Right.
The Instagram is for millennial, and then Gen Z, Snapchat, and then Gen Alpha is TikTok,
Right.
or like Gen Z. So
Exactly.
if you it's like, according to my observation, young people tend to seek for validation, tend to want to hand hold in hand and trying to have a community. So for example, I also run a community that is, and every like the community that I run usually attract people around my age, right?
Right.
And I saw a lot of younger generations community. They are so like organized, and they are so like they are always on the chat. But for my community, people just do their own things. And I would say as we grow older, we have more like a judgmental, or we have our own independent thoughts, and people less likely to hanging out in the community that is so responsible, unless you are a part of that the organization. And I would say that for Gen Z, especially like the very young people, they have a very unique culture for it, and it's very different from millennials and also Gen X. They are like, for example, if you see Snapchat, the reason why Snapchat becomes so popular because young kids want to group together and they want their evidence of chatting being disappeared in 24 hours, and they don't want their parents getting. Once their parents get in, they start moving to another platform. So young people are like running away from old people, and old people are trying to monetize and doing some things. And once they find out their parents in, they just run away. So what do you see this types of like Gen Z types of culture phenomena influence the future of social media and metaverse?
Well, so with metaverse platforms, I think as they Gen Z gets older, gets into their 20s and 30s, they'll like we are saying, they'll still use platforms like Roblox, but they will probably have other activities. Roblox, the company is evolving that way. Like I mentioned, they added telephony, so you can actually call people. So that's sort of an evolution, acknowledging the fact that people are in Roblox are going to be less active as they get older. But you can still use a telephone to call people. That's a use case that they can still do even when they get into college and they're in their 20s and so on. Though I should add, one of the ideals of the metaverse is a diverse community. That's, if you have millions and millions of people using it, by definition, you're going to have a diverse community, and that includes demographics. So I find that very powerful. And we see this in Second Life because it's been around so long, is there are people who are in their 20s who use it because it's still on YouTube and people are having fun with it on streaming, mostly on YouTube. And so people in their 20s are using Second Life, but then they actually become friends with people who are in their 50s, 60s, even 70s and 80s. There are people who are that old using Second Life. And that rarely happens on social media, and let alone the real world, where you have friends that are very different age ranges than you are in real life. But that's great because older people learn what people are younger are interested in, and vice versa. Young people learn from the wisdom of the previous generation, and so you want to encourage metaverse platforms to evolve so they are welcoming to all demographics. And so Roblox, because it is a Gen Z platform, they will hopefully do that. Like I said, they are going in that direction, but that's very important. Is that because unlike because you're interacting as avatars, you don't necessarily know people's real life age, and we want that. We want people to feel they have a platform where they're free to express their identity apart from their race, apart from their gender, apart from their how much money they have in their real life, what part of the world they are. We want a place, and having a virtual world of diverse avatars will enable that. And that's one of the things that really excites me about the metaverse.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And also, I find out that LinkedIn is a very, very interesting social media platform because you see Gen Z, a lot of teachers or a lot of advice online, because Gen Z right now is in the stage where they have to get a job. So a lot of Gen Z, even though they don't like LinkedIn, but they are constantly joining it and trying to run their LinkedIn stuff. So I find out LinkedIn is, I would say a lot of people said that LinkedIn is their news platform. And a lot of, like, for example, like every time when I want to connect with people, I use LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is serving as a professional, more like a real life professional types of like a connection. And you can find the junior people, and you can find more like senior people. But I understand that for Metaverse, it might require more stuff, but I find out that LinkedIn is a really good community that we can all learn from different age of people, and we can connect to almost anybody you want to connect.
Yeah. I really like that, how LinkedIn has evolved. I've noticed it's taken on more Twitter-like features, and I think a lot of people have left Twitter X to go on to LinkedIn because it's much less toxic, and it's more a career business oriented, obviously, but it's a place to share content and news in a platform that has less of that toxicity that X does now.
So I think, what do you think about the economy and monetization? Do you think like a Web3, NFT, cryptocurrency will get into the involve of metaverse, or like what types of economy and monetization for creators in the so-called metaverse?
I explore the whole Web3 cryptoverse, as I call it, opportunity, and explore. Well, I get into the reasons why it actually hasn't worked, because there's been multiple metaverse platforms that are integrated with blockchain, such as Decentraland and the Sandbox, and none of them have really scaled. They're all small. They have like either hundreds or thousands of active users, so very small. And the problem is, as I explained in the book, the metaverse has to succeed as a virtual community first before it succeeds as a marketplace. And because of these cryptoverse platforms, they already have baked in that you can make a lot of money if you buy the coin or you get a virtual property like in Decentraland. So people are there primarily to make a big score. They want to make money. And so they're not there to be with other people as a community. They might do that later on, but because you've changed the incentive structure, it really can't grow because you need to succeed as a virtual community. And so that's been the fundamental problem. There are ways to experiment with cryptocurrency or blockchain. And I've seen some interesting ones where, for example, you can use the blockchain to track some level of ownership or to make it part of a democratic voting, like a DAO. And that's interesting. That's worth trying. So far, it hasn't worked. But I think definitely what people who are interested in Web3 should think about is make the community work first, the virtual world community, and then think about adding cryptocurrency, because you can't do it the other way around. It's sort of what psychologists call you overdetermine things, where people are there not to make friends or to have fun. They're there to make money. And so it changes their reasons for being in there, and then they quickly lose interest if they don't see the money.
Yeah, and I can tell you a long time ago, probably a few years ago, when like overseas, I remember there was a platform like OpenSeas. I used that And I was thinking about maybe I create something and see if I can monetize it. So I create
Right.
an account. I use AI to generate. It's kind of like a asteroid, like a
Oh, okay.
use AI to generate. I post a lot.
Right.
It's very quickly. It's very quick to just generate a lot of art.
Right.
And I start selling, and I start thinking about, oh, maybe I sell like a 1 Ethereum or something like very cheap, and it's actually convert into the USD dollars. It's very expensive, like 13K or something. But
Wow.
I just like make it like a just try it out and see how it can monetize. And at the
Right.
end, I just keep building it, and I feel so excited, and I keep checking out like, is there anybody buy it? And I find
Right.
out nobody buy it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what can I do to
Too bad.
sell my thing? And I started like learning how to run a business on that. And then I started checking out like what's the top 10 that sells the best. First, you need to be celebrity or celebrity endorsed. That
Right.
might be, or like a big brand endorsed, because because people usually are followers and they want to earn quick money. So if they see there
Right.
are a lot of transactions here and there, but in order to do that, you need to have a huge capital to do it first for people to trust there's some money transaction. You're like before we saw there's like a monkey head, right? Tons of
Oh, yeah.
monkey
Bored
head.
apes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I find out. You need celebrity, and second is that people like a headshot. So cute
Mhm.
headshot is great. And later on, I start realize that why I need a smart contract, and this thing need to be put into the metaverse. Why can I not use like a screenshot if I want to print out? It's like I don't even need a metaverse to survive. Why I need art or any
Right.
2D format of things. I can always screenshot, and somebody even screenshot someone's tweet, other people's tweet, or
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a lawsuit
First tweet
case.
was sold as a, yeah.
Yeah, and somebody even do like did the put Nike's shoes. Somebody did it and as NFT, and Nike sued
Mhm.
them. So I started seeing that a lot of things that doesn't really make sense, and a lot of like 3D prompts I can buy, or get free from Sketchfab. But why should I get something that has some smart contract and a lot of
Right.
things being generated by AI? It doesn't feel authentic, and it
Right.
seems like a little bit dead. Like it seems like
Mhm.
there's no activities on my account, so I just
Exactly. Yeah.
abandoned it. And
Right.
I even did the research. How can I monetize through NFT? And I saw Gary V. Gary V has a brand. He
Mhm.
was selling a ticket using NFT to sell membership. So if you
Right.
get this restaurant membership, it's like a fish or something,
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah.
you are automatically get access to the best restaurant in New York. So it's kind of like he said that NFT is good for selling membership and also pair up with
Right.
the real world service, something like that. So what do you see that is that really necessarily for Web3 NFT to be in metaverse, or it can be just a very simple token, right? Like a game token,
Right.
game currency. Do you think
Yeah.
Web3 is necessarily or an NFT?
Absolutely not. We definitely have no evidence that Web3 or cryptocurrency has any meaningful use case within metaverse platforms. It might, there are people trying to do that, but it's not really succeeded. For the very reason I'm saying is the virtual world has to be a virtual community first,
Mm.
and then you can think about adding monetization. Now, even monetization in terms of exchanging the virtual currency for real currency, you don't want to immediately launch that. You want it to be a
Mm.
thriving community before you even add that, because
Mm.
that changes the dynamics, and so you have to be very careful about adding that.
Yeah, so just like you said that, build a very engaging virtual community first. And I
Yeah.
remember in your book, you mentioned there was a Roblox creator who just accidentally create a really popular game and then
Right.
also start monetize it. And they are very, very engaging. And there's a community or a brand called Starving Artist, and
Oh, yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
was like jump in and start like collaborating, and people just want to earn money. So I think the creator economy is very important, because if the developer put their heart in, and by the reward of money. And in your book, you even mentioned that that person, that developer, successful developer, doesn't even know what's metaverse, doesn't even know what's the professional terms, but she just very enjoy the entire process and keep engaging it. What do you see those types of like creator economies, like successful one, in those so-called metaverse platforms?
That's you're referring to LA Girls is her Roblox name, and she joined Roblox. She's from Haiti originally, or Jamaica, sorry, and she joined it as a kid, and she was playing around and enjoying Roblox for socializing and creating content just for fun. And then as she got better at creating content, she realized, wow, I could actually make a living. And then she met a guy there, and they ended up becoming boyfriend girlfriend, and they started collaborating on projects. But that's really, that story I tried to express is key to understanding how a metaverse works. It's, you want to get people who are established creators, are members of the community, they have a lot of friends in the community, and then they start creating content, and then they start monetizing. So Starving Artists is, I think, the third or fourth game. They've had other games that were less successful, but Starving Artists became really huge. So yeah, that's what we see with metaverse platforms. It's I talk to a lot of people like, well, how do I go into Roblox or VR chat and start making money? And it's like, well, no, you got to be part of the community first, understand what people enjoy doing, and also enjoy it on your own terms, because you should really want to enjoy being part of the community and the platform, and then you can start creating content, because first games like are very different from kind of traditional games, generally speaking. Like Fortnite is kind of an exception because it's a fun team shooter, and so it's sort of always been that. Like now they have a Fortnite creative, and so people make games, and that's part of their metaverse vision, and it's working well. Though most of the games are shooter oriented, so it's sort of going to reflect that communities, or the it's going to reflect the platform's basic structure. Whereas with VR chat, you have a lot of games in VR, but they're very social. Like they're games of like tag, or a mystery game is really popular. Like you have to discover who in the haunted mansion is the murderer. That kind of social game aspect. So yeah, really that's important with monetization is find out what the culture of the platform is, and create content that would already appeal to that culture.
Yeah, so just like you said that the Web3 NFT cryptocurrency is not necessarily important to create a monetization economy, but first, the most important thing is to create a very engaging virtual community first. And what do you see Gen Z and social media? How is Gen Z shaping the metaverse, and what roles does social media play in this evolution?
This is a point I really hope gets across in the book. I see the metaverse as an alternative to social media, or an alternative culture to social media, because social media is so oriented around presentation of who you are in real life, like on Instagram and TikTok, where you do videos about yourself, and they've really sort of structurally lent themselves to rewarding the people who are the prettiest in real life, or the most handsome or attractive, or can present a rich lifestyle. And that's a really corrosive thing. And it's been horrible to Gen Z in particular, especially girls, that their self-esteem gets really battered down because they're constantly comparing themselves to the prettiest person on Instagram, the most successful person. And with metaverse platforms like Roblox and Fortnite and so on, you don't have to have any of that identity. You can leave your real life identity behind. And you are basically in a metaverse platform, you're expressing your interests, things that are really important to you and to your personality, you can express in a virtual space, and not be judged based on your background. And that's so important. And especially now that these platforms have so much corrosiveness. What's also interesting too is what'll happen is people who are using Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite, they'll do that much more than social media. But then when they use social media, a lot of times it's based around their virtual world activity. So, Roblox, for example, I know there's a lot of people on Twitter X who are Roblox users or VR chat users, but most of the stuff they talk about on X is VR chat or Roblox. So they take the virtual world with them. So that's true with the YouTube. I even call YouTube Metaverse TV, because that's the most popular content on YouTube is Minecraft videos. And then all these platforms have a lot of YouTube videos. Like I interviewed a guy named share more in VR chat. And
mm,
he goes around interviewing people. He does really amazing interviews of
mm,
interesting people he meets in VR chat.
mm.
And his platform on YouTube, he has 1 million subscribers, way
Oh,
over 1 million subscribers. So
mm.
his his YouTube channel is more popular than a lot of channels of like I think People Magazine has less
Wow.
followers on YouTube than he
Mm.
does. And
Wow.
his channel is really interesting. So that's an exciting thing is that Gen Z and also millennials to a certain extent are reshaping their social media based on what they in a metaverse platform like
Mm.
Roblox or VR chat and so on. And
Yeah.
that's exciting because, like I was saying, social media has had so many negative consequences to people, especially the young, that
Yeah,
we
right.
want to give them an alternative. And the alternative is the metaverse.
Yeah. So you are thinking about like right now social media is like limited to one platform, but in the future the social media will be less about who you are, but more about what you like or what's your
Hopefully, yeah.
interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
As
yeah.
as the Roblox generation enters social media, yeah, I hope we see that a lot more.
Yeah, because if you see that, I recently did some research about Gen Z, and they said that they are grow up with the social media or Instagram stuff. So they when they were really young, they start judging themselves and compare themselves with other people, like since they were very young. And
Yeah.
I think for the older generation like me, I feel like I'm lucky. When I start using Facebook, I'm probably like a 20 something. So that's why
Yeah.
I didn't really I feel like wow, I just treat it as oh, I didn't delete my Facebook because I just like sometimes I just see what my friends doing, but now
Yeah.
all my friends is not posting. So it ends up
Right.
to see a lot of like other creators stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like connecting with the college friends or something. So
Right.
your goal, your thought is that social media will become the future of metaverse and less about the comparison, more about sharing the vision or sharing the interests and collaborate together.
Right.
And yeah, so what do you see that like a AR, VR, or generative AI or XR
Mhm.
or the future of very high tech types of emerging technology
Yeah.
enhance the metaverse experience?
Yeah, well, so we talked a bit about AR, VR headsets, and like I said, it's not necessary. But what's really interesting, I've noticed, and this is even mentioned in Snow Crash, is that people who have a full VR rig,
Hmm.
they're able to be much more expressive because their hand motion is being tracked, even their body. So people in VR chat who dance in VR chat, and
Hmm.
they have fans because they're good dancers. Like I interviewed one a guy who's very shy in Germany, and
Hmm.
he would never see himself going to a club in real life, but in VR chat he has like a little anime avatar, and he's a really amazing dancer.
Hmm.
And so he's got a big following. So that's a cool aspect of VR. And VR rigs is it enables that kind of creative expression. Most people will not use VR. Generally speaking, they'll be on their phone or PC. But that's an important aspect is that it does enable a higher level of creativity. VR
Hmm.
does and AR does. So that's one thing. And then talking about generative AI, that's still very much undecided how important it's going to be. Definitely interesting uses of it now that are
Hmm.
being experimented with. For example, Second Life really recently added NPCs that are
Hmm.
connected to
OpenAI.
ChatGPT, so you can have very involved conversations with NPCs, like where you can ask them anything.
Hmm.
And it's kind of interesting. I've not seen it gain traction, and that's true generally of all platforms.
Hmm.
Is they're all experimenting with generative AI,
Yeah.
and it really hasn't taken off yet. And I
Yeah.
think one of the reasons why is one of the key things. Like I say, the metaverse has highly powerful creation tools.
Yeah.
So creativity, human creativity, is so essential to the platform. Where if you have too much generative AI and people's
Hmm.
you know a lot of developers talk about, oh, I want to just enter a prompt and say, oh, build me a castle in the background, and a
Hmm.
castle appears. And that way, the human creativity part of it, and like, what's the point of
Yeah.
being in the platform if everything is created by the computer? And
Yeah.
you could have it as an assistant. Like
Hmm.
I've seen some interesting uses of it where there's a lot of procedural generation that happens based on what you're using, like the building blocks you're using, and you're putting it into the world,
Hmm.
and AI helps fill in the details, but the human leads the creativity, and I think that's going to be what we see scale. It's not going to be this prompt of, yeah, build me a house kind of thing. You want the users to create the house, and then maybe AI can help fill in the details, and based on like what you say the personality of the house is, like what the style is, and that helps out. But you don't want to take the human out of the equation. We enjoy individual human creativity. We enjoy seeing how a person expresses themselves and their unique vision. And so generative AI does not do that. So I think it can be an assistant, like I'm saying, but yeah, I doubt we'll see generative AI really dominate metaverse platforms. And frankly, they're not as used as much. I just looked at this. OpenAI has 180 million registered users. So it's smaller than Roblox, and Roblox is only one platform. So yeah,
Wow.
it's I think we're going to hit the crushing of wave that we're having with generative AI, because it's not proven to be as powerful as people in AI say it is. And so yeah, it's hopefully we'll get back to talking about the metaverse, because it's much larger in terms of active users.
Yeah, just like you said that the human needs to always involve in the Gen AI creation.
Yeah,
The human need to do the input, need to have a vision, and also human
right.
need to validate whether they something need to be changed or not. So
Yeah,
human and AI, those integration will be more efficiency versus only human or only UI. They need to combine together. And
right.
also I do agree with you that I personally try some NPC integrate with my app. I'm creating like
Hmm.
a literature, The Raven, and written by Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh,
I
right.
create an immersive experience, and I put Edgar Allan Poe as NPC. And
Oh,
you can
cool.
ask Edgar, because I put a lot of local and I use convey.com, that types
Oh,
of
yeah,
platform.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
that's one in Second Life too.
it use Ready Player Me, OpenAI, and also Linden Lab, the combination of them, and create that. So I can pretty much curated a lot of interesting stuff. And I find out that there's a book written by Khan Academy's founder, Saul Khan. He mentioned in his new book, he said that those types of copilot or NPC in the game or education games, or even in Khan Academy, they have a chatbot. It allows, for example, student reading like some history, and they want to talk directly to the people. For example, Great Gatsby, talk
Hmm.
to the actual historical figure. What do they think? Why you think that way? More customized questions, and those chatbot can serve as an assistant. So I find out this concept is very intriguing, and especially in education platform.
Yeah,
Sometimes one teacher need to face like a 30 students, and it's very hard to answer everybody's customized question during the time when they
right.
are doing the homework. So I find out these types of probably not
Interesting trend I see that has been driven by Epic is they announced that integration and partnership with Disney to incorporate Disney IP with Fortnite. So since Disney is so huge, that's Fortnite content integrated with Marvel characters, Disney characters, Pixar characters, Star Wars characters, and so I think we'll see that more and more is tighter
mm,
integration with traditional media, so movies and TV and so on, with metaverse platforms. So that's going to be very interesting, because especially with Gen Z growing up, they're going to be totally used to that. That's sort of novel to Gen
mm.
X and Gen Y. Like, oh, there's Hello Kitty character in here, and that's sort of interesting. But I think people Gen Z are going to grow up, they're just going to be used to that. So they'll enjoy watching a movie, and then all of a sudden after that they'll go into Roblox.
According to what you said, is that the more like IP existing content IP will be start merging. And for
Yeah.
example, yeah, you play like a Disney Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse will be in Fortnite or something, jumping different place, and for GTA. It will be probably more like a smart city or something like, oh, there's a city in the virtual place and there's a city in the real world,
Yeah.
like some interesting like a reality and digital world
Yeah.
merge, and there's a story behind.
Kind of a digital twin and use cases of that. One thing I'm really hopeful that does happen, I'm not sure it will, but is we see content that's created in metaverse platforms that jumps and becomes a TV show or movie. Like you think of the big Roblox games like Adopt Me or Starving Artist, which I mentioned. they have huge user bases. They're more popular than most TV shows.
Wow.
And so what I hope, and what's cool is their grassroots. This, like Starving Artist, which I mentioned, is made by people in their early 20s, and they didn't work in Hollywood. They just started creating content, and it's very successful. So they could very easily make partner with Hollywood to do a TV show that's Starving Artist or movie. And I hope we see that, because again, with metaverse platforms and creation tools, it's a chance for people from all walks of life on the grassroots to create content that becomes very popular, and then that could start hopefully influencing like the larger culture.
Yeah, so just like you said, that content creator is very important.
Yes.
And someone I saw on LinkedIn even post that content creator or content creation will be the new oil. Long time ago, we mentioned that, personal data will be the new oil, because you see like a lot of, right now we see why before people said that personal data will be oil, because we see AI, right? All the company want our data to train their AI. And now there's another new oil, which is content creation. And for right now, we have AI, right? A lot of people, and you see all the economy slump, like back in 2022, layoff, and 23, kind of like a recession for creators. And a lot of young people, because right now I'm like a adjunct professor, and I saw a lot of more like college grades, they are seeking for their entry jobs. But because you see seniors still like looking for something. So it's very hard for junior creators. What do you see? And before you mentioned that a starving artist, they just create their content, and they didn't even get any, certification or any formal education for them to be, working at Hollywood, those like a well-known company. They just start their own thing, and later on, they will be able to kind of equally working with Hollywood studios. What do you see, for the young creators, or generally the creators for the AI? Because at AWE, there's also another very important like a talk or messages that Ori trying to convey that AI is our friend. Don't be afraid of it. Even though it's like kind of like people are still afraid of like, AI will get a lot of like a traditional types of standard jobs or something. If you see Figma, because I mean, my background is designer, so I saw like Figma, the conference. Right now, you just put like a prompt and they generate the app for you. And I was like, wow, a long time ago, you need a UX designer, UX researcher. All the pipelines start reducing. What do you see? What's your advice for the young or generally the creators? What can they do? Yeah.
I definitely recommend that creators experiment with generative AI programs like Midjourney. And it's useful somewhat as a prototyping, like to get ideas. And then off those ideas, I would be very cautious of putting all your emphasis or focus on generative AI, because I think it's overhyped. And there's always going to be a primacy and a focus on individual creations. Just because that you with generative AI programs, they're basically trained on existing art. So they're just regurgitating art that already exists, and you want to create new art.
Yeah.
And so that's the one piece of it. The other piece of it is you cannot copyright generative AI. Like if you create something in Midjourney, you can't say, okay, I'm going to copyright that and sell it. Like legally, you cannot do that. Like it's literally part of the U.S. Constitution that people should have a right to copyright their content. So we're going to see, well, we're already seeing legal challenges. I wrote on my blog a well-known Congressman, Adam Schiff, who he's in the district that Hollywood is based in. He has a law or bill that will probably become a law in the next year or two that will actually require companies like Midjourney to reveal what copyrighted content that they've trained on, because that's going to expose how much copyrighted content they have, and they're going to either have to start licensing it from copyright holders or take it out entirely. So I think we're going to see a big backlash to generative AI programs because of all this, and it'll be driven even more by laws like that.
Just like you said, that right now everything is integrating OpenAI. Even Apple Intelligence is using OpenAI, and I saw you see before Scarlett Johansson, right? The voice thing. So we know that OpenAI is training things that you know they say, oh, it's online, and we all know what's online. Everything is online, right? And it's
Right,
definitely not paying the creators. So
right, right.
yeah, so and OpenAI is pretty much integrate with everything and get everybody's data. So that's why I think the legislation, we
Yes.
need to kind of like a start putting some regulation in, so in the future we won't, like for example, we will be, if there's no regulation, we will be all the slave or all the
Hmm.
materials for OpenAI. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so do you have any last things you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say, well, of course, read my book is one of the things to share, but the other thing is to think about the culture of metaverse platforms and the communities of metaverse cultures and see what they're doing, because these are already very thriving, very large platforms, and they are doing amazing things. They're creating new communities that are built on the internet, and they go across demographics and cultures, and it's really exciting. And follow what the communities are doing. Don't follow as much what Mark Zuckerberg and people like that are saying, because they didn't evolve with these platforms. They're kind of saying, well, they're going to decide how they're made, but they don't understand that these platforms already have very thriving